Hi everyone, welcome to the Kreator's podcast. On this first episode today, we have Marco Piccari with us, an Italian artist who works out of this beautiful studio in Bath. Hi Marco.
Hi, Salman.
So Marco, can you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm Marco, I'm Italian, as you said. I'm 40. And yeah, I've been in Bath for 3 years now. Studied at Bath University under the aegis of the Erasmus program with the Academy of Fine Art of Venice. And I have a studio here at Bath Artist Studios since November 2020.
Nice. So can you tell us a bit more about the work here?
So I'm a painter. I work in oils, and my practice is very much based on research. My research revolves around concepts of light and shadow, and particularly around the work of a German philosopher, Hannah Arendt, that wrote an essay about dark times and how she interpreted and explained dark time through Heidegger's writings. In this essay, she explains that dark times are not actually a matter of lack of light, but more of wrong lighting. By that meaning, the wrong lighting is sort of like a communication that aims to hide things rather than explain them and communicating them. So it's kind of like sort of like this communication. And my work is really influenced by this concept. I always found the dichotomy between light and shadow to be particularly interesting as a metaphor for something else, for like poles of extremes and how they dialogue and interact with each other, and sort of like yin and yang, or like black and white, and how there's a bit of both in everyone, in both of them. In most of my paintings, I use windows as metaphors because they are the device through which we see the world outside and we let the air and light come in. It's almost like trying to explain the sort of like paradox of wanting to go out, be outside, be open and extrovert, but at the same time kind of like struggling with the world outside, with finding my place in the world outside. And so in a way almost wanting to protect myself from the light. So in most of my paintings you'll see that there are sort of like dark interiors in which the light is kind of like screened through blinds or through a blanket thrown over the window. And yeah, and basically I sort of like try to thread together my research, my like conceptual research with my painterly practice.
So you, as you mentioned before, like research is part of your process. So other than the research and the actual act of painting, how do you prepare yourself for, like, let's say, a specific project?
First of all, I need like a bigger idea. So like my research was really the first part of my practice. Throughout my my daily life, I take pictures of things that kind of like catch my attention, and I never know what they're gonna be and how I'm gonna use them, but I know that somehow they sparkle some sort of interest. So then once my research is starting to come together, and usually I work a lot with the images that the research itself kind of like suggests me. Then at that point, I kind of like try to see in the things that I photographed sort of like a metaphor for something else that I want to say or imply. That doesn't need to be necessarily, you know, immediately caught by by the viewer. It's just something that to me makes sense, and it sort of like helps me make sense of the world and like understand how things work, how the world works, or I don't know how we as human work.
And so is that what you're trying to explore through your art, like how humans work and how the world works according to your perspective?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess the main thing for me is trying to make sense of what is happening around me and trying to understand like our particular time and how like what this moment in history and what it is like, what it is about, what led us to this moment, how we became this, and how you know, also with the internet, how the internet has changed our lives, especially like for people of my generation who were born in an era that didn't have internet, and now internet is ubiquitous and it's so ingrained in our lives that I'm sort of like wonder what that changed in my life, in my experience, because I guess being of the age that I am kind of gives me an advantage. I know of a before and an after, and it's quite special this thing that the internet does of keeping the past always present.
Yeah.
It's almost like living surrounded by ghosts all the time. There are so many different times that you can revisit and look at and you know, reimagine, and that is possible through movies, obviously, but like through the internet, you have such a direct experience of a different age, especially when you look at photographs or movies from the 80s, the 70s, and you see a different light and different way of portraying colors. You know how a certain age becomes ingrained with like a certain way of depicting it, and I don't know. I find this interesting, and I always try in my work to have sort of like different layers at the same time, almost like to kind of like catch the transience of things and trying to make them permanent in a way that suggests that there are different layers of time and on the same canvas. That's I guess that's basically how I work. And like then when I have an image, I try to understand how I can sort of like enhance what I see in that image through paint, and that makes like the sort of like the change in a way. How I can you know, make a collage with different images, or how I can change the colors, make some edges a bit more soft, or different operations that I do. Like for example, there is an interiors that I've done that is purple and yellow, and it's one that I'm working on at the moment. And the interior, like obviously when I took the picture, the colors were not the same as the ones that I depicted, but I thought that I wanted something really gloomy, but like not black, something that was a bit playful in a way, but at the same time gloomy. And so I resolved to use purple and different shades of purple, and then to focus the attention of the viewer on the blinds that are yellow, and there's this stark white light coming through and reflecting on the floor. So it's always a bit of like a compromise in between my research, the picture that I've taken maybe 2, 3, 5 years ago, and what I'm trying to say among the two. Like there's a lot of the work is done in my head before I even start on the canvas. So yeah, I'd say that this is generally my process. It's a bit messy as a process. It's not really linear, but it's kind of like the way my brain works. I think.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I mean, to understand someone else's workflow as an artist is always very interesting, and you have quite a long workflow, and it's all done mentally before. So, how important is that, like, for thought, like, to be the forefront in the painting to you?
Um, how do you mean?
So thought in terms of like, uh, is it always supposed to be meaningful, or sometimes do you think someone can do a great piece of art but it's not as meaningful, or like there's no much personal meaning attached, but the piece of art is amazing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally think this is just the way my brain works. I need to have sort of like something to, you know, to grip, to give me a little bit of grip, and I need it to be research based because that's how my brain works. But like definitely there are so many artists that don't necessarily are trying to convey a meaning in each painting, but like their work is still amazing, and I really admire that. Or like they have maybe like a longer sort of like concept or a longer interest that spans through the arch of their entire career or life, so they don't particularly think of what they want to communicate, but still what's inside of them seeps through. Like at the end of the day, it's something that is man-made, so it obviously has something that is really personal, and probably it's more up to the viewer to then see whatever they want to see. Like for me, in my case, I need to have like a research behind it, but just because that's how my brain works.
That's really insightful. And so, how is it being an artist in Bath? Do you think, you were in Venice before and then Bath, so it's like the Roman connection? Is there something to do with that?
Not really. I actually, when I first moved to Bath, I thought, oh gosh, like another city with like Roman architecture. I can't bear this anymore. I wanted to go to England to see like actually English architecture, not Roman architecture. But no, apart from that, I don't know. Like like Venice is obviously a beautiful city, and it gave me a lot in terms of visual culture. I learned a lot there, but then my actual education, I would say, in art was here in Bath. And I found that I was in a really special moment because I had two amazing tutors at Bath University, and I had a great group of peers. So we really helped each other out. Although I have to say, and like I'm really grateful that I have a studio here, for example. It's a great experience, and Bath is a great place to live. Like perfect size. You don't have to waste that much time like on transportation just to commute from A to B. But apart from that, I would say that like the art scene is a bit poor, I would say. Yeah. Although there are many artists, but I find that there's a common struggle in Bath, because it's almost like, obviously it's a beautiful city that relies a lot on tourism, on the history of the place. So they don't necessarily need to invest in
art,
or in anything new, really.
Yeah.
And art is quite famished at the moment, nationwide, probably worldwide. But yeah, I think that that is something that could be definitely improved in Bath.
Yeah.
And I think because there's such a wide basin of artists that are really exciting, actually. So it's really a pity that there's there's nothing more for them, for us.
And hopefully, like with our artistic pursuits, we can create some sort of community and community aspect to it, and get more and more artists together. Because as you said, like finding the right people to collaborate with, it changes everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's why this place was amazing, because it gave me a community just after uni, when obviously you have this sort of like disgregation, and like everybody goes home in a way.
Yeah.
But like having a place here gave me another community that was equally supportive and equally important for me, and gave me so many different perspectives on my work, their works. So it's, yeah, I would say definitely.
Awesome. Yeah. And then just as signing off with the last question, you mentioned Hannah Arendt as being one of your inspirations. Who else are you inspired by? Any painters?
Yeah, absolutely. So Edward Hopper is one of the all-time, favorites of mine. I really like his work, and sometimes especially when I was painting more still lifes, I kind of like thought that my work was sort of like turning his characters, the characters that sometimes populate his paintings, into objects and having a different perspective, but basically on the same sense of disconnectedness. And then also Luc Tuymans is another really important reference for me, and Mama Anderson, Marlene Dumas, which I happened to see a big show of hers in Venice recently, and it was just mind blowing. It just confirmed how, how great painting can be, and like how alive as well. Because there's also like this talk constantly that painting maybe is dead, maybe there's nothing else to do in painting, but there's actually so much. And like artists like Tuymans, Mama Anderson, and Marlene Dumas really show us that painting is more alive than ever and can really do a lot.
So, we're all trying to keep art alive in our hearts and in the
Yeah.
world. So, yeah, it was great talking to you, Marco. Thank you very much for sharing your insights and telling us about your work. If you want to check out Marco's Instagram, you can check that out. All the links will be in the description. And you can also check out Krakenai's YouTube page. And then find all the links below.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco.